Hi, this is Tracy Taylor. We're doing a candidate forum to hopefully inform the voters a little bit more before this election. So I'd like to welcome Perry Rose. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully this will be of some use to our citizens out there.
Well, at least they'll get to know who I am. I want them to vote for me, not for who they think I am.
Right. So perfect. So tell us about yourself. Why are you running for city council?
City council. I've been a part of this community since 1968, and grew up here as a kid. Was taken care of by local law enforcement, and ended up getting married from a young lady out of Penguin, Utah, and we moved back up here. 4 children, Karen, my wife, and of course Brandon, my oldest son, and Angela, my oldest daughter, who are both in law enforcement today. And then Keishla, my youngest daughter, which is took after her mother and become a cosmetologist, and a secretary. And then my youngest son, who works for me in Pride Security, and he's my next in command. And I've watched this community go from a small one-cow town, is what we used to call it, to I think it's out of control. And as I sit back and people come to me and said, Perry, you've been in this city all these years, you've watched the change, what do we do? We got to do something. And you did 25 years with Heber City Police Department, first policeman ever to start my career and end my career in full retirement for Heber City. That's something I was proud of. And the reason that I did that is because I remember when I was hired as a policeman, going into city council, and I remember Councilman Scott Wright, Keith Jacobson, and Shug Clegg. Now I'm dating myself here a little bit.
I was going to say.
But that's one of the things that I remember about them. They said, well, why would we hire a young kid like you? And I said, I really don't know why. But I'll tell you this, if you'll give me the opportunity, I'll prove to you that I'll stay for a full 20 years. That's what the retirement was. And it was unanimous. I got the vote, and I've become a full-time policeman. And over the years, I remember there was 4 policemen in this whole community for the city that run the streets and took care of us. And when I retired in 2005, everybody said, oh, Perry, now what are we going to do? And I said, it's time for these young guys to step up and do some stuff. And I was proud of the crew that we had then. I was kind of the assistant chief, and there was some things that people that were coming up that needed the chance and the opportunity, and I had some family stuff going on. And then after I got through all of that and started this business, and I sat back now and I say to myself, it's time. This community gave to me a career and was good to me. It's time for me to give back to this community. And as I've run my business here in this community for 10 years and with a partner, it's important for me to make sure that this community stays who it is, and we got to recognize who we are. I think the biggest thing about it is we've lost sensitivity of who we are, where we're going, and what we need to do to get there. And I guess now I'm to the situation where you can't say nothing, you can't argue unless you're doing everything you can to make a difference. This is my way of making a difference. I'm only one vote, but I'm going to think outside the box. I'm going to think inside the box. I'm going to study the issues. I already have a platform, and I've talked a little bit about that. I'm sure we'll talk about that in this interview. Mm-hmm. But I stand for the elderly people in this community that have done everything they can to make this a beautiful community. And now I've heard so many of them come to me and say, it's not beautiful anymore. And the reason for it is because of what's going on. And I think there's some people in our government today that don't understand that. And I want to be that voice back in there. I know I'm only one vote.
Well, and one of my questions was going to be, what are the qualities that you bring to the table? What do you think you can bring to Heber City being a council person? If you could give me just 1 or 2 things that how you conduct yourself that you think the city could benefit from it.
Well, that's an easy question. I'm a person that I stand on my own morals. I stand for what this community wants. And it doesn't matter to me. Someone comes up and says that's not the right thing because of this and because of that. No, that's what our community stands for. I'd rather go down a failure than to change and be somebody that someone else wants me to be. I'm not a puppet. Never have been. Wasn't in law enforcement. Had to make hard decisions. Some of them wasn't popular. Today, some of the things that need to happen in our government, and people that are making the decisions for the people that live in this community, there's some hard decisions. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to stand in there and take the beating that we need to. We've made mistakes. And you shouldn't be afraid to admit, I made a mistake. How do we fix it and how do we go on?
Well, let me ask you one of those.
Let's go.
Let me ask you, annexations. We're talking about expanding Heber City. The Heber City Council right now is looking at their annexation map, deciding if they should annex east and north of Heber. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's make it real easy.
Okay.
I will not vote for another annexation in this community at this point. Now, I don't think in the 4 years, if elected, that I'm in there, and we'll take in 4 years, we'll see if I'm going to rerun. I'm sure that I probably will. I think 8 years is what you need to do what you want to do, and to help the community, it takes at least that long. We have enough problems in our community right now. Let's talk about that for just a minute. We want to annex the Sorensen property. We want to annex east. Here's my question. I hear these department heads, police department. I hear the public works people saying, all we are is a training center. Why are we a training center? Well, we can't pay these people enough money, and so we train them and then they move on someplace where there's more money. Whose fault's that? That's our fault. We're trying to outgrow ourselves. When we outgrow ourselves, we can't give them the money they need. Let's stop growing. We've got enough. And these people will say, well, if we don't annex the Sorensen property, they're going to incorporate and make a township, and then they'll become... Heber City is the central place of Wasatch County, and it always will be. I think that anytime we go up there, number one, we ain't got the water. They can't get the water to support that. Number two, what are we going to do with the sewer if we annex it? That means we're going to have to go add on to the sewer plant. Where are you going to get the money after the developers come in and develop it and then go away with their pockets full of money? Where are you going to get the money to hire the public works and the police department? Because it doesn't matter. They say, well, it's not an overnight thing. It's an overnight thing. Mm-hmm. Because once the infrastructure's in, public works got to take care of it. You put one house in there that's not even lived in, our police department have to patrol it. So that's more manpower. You can't spread them that thin. No, annexation to me needs to stop. And people will say, well, Perry, let's say that what you're saying is true. It is true. It is true. Number one. Number two, is all the problems in Old Town fixed? No. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. Drive around this community, and I want you to just drive around today and see how many little water bubbles are coming up in a road. And then watch that water bubble that's coming up, which is a leak in a water line that is so precious to us, we shouldn't be losing that water. And it's just running off because our public works haven't got time to go get it fixed. I've had reports from people. I watched one for over 7 months continue to leak. And when I asked one of the city workers why, we just don't have time to get to it. It isn't a big thing. Well, it is a big thing. Right.
So I see what you're saying about just let's stop the annexations for now. Let's get caught up on some of the things. What about the airport? Airport expansion, working with the FAA in the future, that they're going to probably want an expansion. What are your thoughts on that? And, you know, the citizens of Heber have a pretty strong feeling about our airport.
Sure.
So, you know, how do you come down on the airport expansion?
Well, let me start by saying, when we jumped in bed many years ago with the federal government on the airport, and they become partial owner, and we started running this together, there was a city councilman by the name of Shug Clegg that said, we're tying ourselves up to federal money, and it's something that's going to be a long period of time. And I was even one of them that used to say, really, Shug? Well, here we are today. But here's the problem that I see with the airport. The airport's big enough. Are we going to have another Salt Lake International in Heber City? No. Not when you got Provo that's just down the road that wants to expand theirs. So what's this going to be? A little recreation airport where people from Park City will fly in and go over to Park City, or people will fly in to stay in Heber City because we're continuing to annex. Got to shut that annexation down. But the airport is what it is. It's big enough. We don't need it any bigger. And when they say, well, if we don't make it bigger, then we don't get the federal money. Let's get real. I get so sick and tired about we don't get federal money. Federal money is ridiculous. Where does that federal money come from? It comes out of our taxes, right? It's our public money. The only thing different is the guys, bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., they print a little bit more and make our dollar fall more. But guess what? It's still public money.
So you're willing to try and keep the airport the size it is now?
Absolutely. And if we need to do improvements to make it safe, then let's buck up with the county. Let's buck up with Midway City. Let's buck up with Wallsburg. Everybody that has a part in that. Why can't we reach over the mountain to Park City that might be using it a little bit more than the people here and say, hey, help us maintain this, help us do this. But let's cut off some of this federal funds.
Okay. Bypass road. How do you feel about it? Do you think it's taking, if we get a bypass road, is it taking customers away from the merchants on Main Street? Would it,
many years ago, we heard that same battle, right?
Right.
This town's growing, and there's enough people here to support this. If you don't believe that, try to go to the Dairy King on a Friday night, Thursday night, Wednesday night at dinner time. You're waiting in line, and they do a good job getting people out. My wife and I like to run down to Provo sometimes to go out to dinner. We don't do it in the evening. Why don't you go out in the evening? Because it's an hour wait. Well, Chick's Cafe, the Hub, you go there, lunchtime even, and there's a waiting line. I mean, it's busy. Mm-hmm. Do we think that that's people from out of town? No, that's not people from out of town. That's local people. I know them because a lot of them are my friends. I shake hands with them when I go there. Bypass has to happen. And we have enough family base here that will support our businesses on Main Street. We need to do better to sell that to the businesses here and shop local. I'm a big supporter in shopping local. Okay, so it may cost us a little bit more money, but you know what? Let's shop local. But the bypass needs to happen, and not only does the bypass need to happen, we need to force our trucks out onto that bypass. Let's set that bypass in so it's an easy lane, so the truckers want to take that to get them through. Mm-hmm. There's, you know as well as I do, there'll be a truck stop at that end, one on Midway Lane, and one on the south end. You know what? They'll stop on them places, and the people that just want to go through camping will do that. But if they need something, they're going to come into town to pick.
So how do you think we can move this along so that UDOT will seriously consider building this thing?
Well, we got to get involved with our senators and our representative. One of our representatives is over DOT. What a great time for us to reach out to them and say, hey, let's do something for our own community here. Let's push this up. I have reached out to Senator Margaret Dayton, and I've worked with her for about the last 6 years on changing some laws in the state and stuff. And I can reach out to her, and I know that she'll support anything that we would like up here, because she's come up and made some stops here, and she's come to a couple of meetings that I've been involved in here. Lee Perry, who's a highway patrolman representative up in the northern part of the state, got a great working relationship with him. He's a highway patrolman, and he understands traffic and what it does. And I think there's two people that I can actually hook up with, and we can start a real strong committee to put this on the forefront of DOT and say, we don't want it in 20 years, we want it in 5 years. And that's a commitment that I'll make to the people of Heber, that I'll work everything I can to get that done quickly. Let's get it on, let's get it put in. There's a lot of things that have already taken place that a lot of our public doesn't know. So there's been some land acquisitions made, and there's not as much work to get that done as what we think.
It's money.
It's money, but I think there's some. Again, I think we're going to rely on the federal government. Okay, the federal government is there. There's some other ways that we can develop money that'll help push that along.
Okay, you kind of mentioned infrastructure a little bit, but we see all the workers out there replacing water and sewer lines, and we've had our water fees and sewer fees raised in the last couple of years. You have any thoughts on how to be effective at replacing and repairing our infrastructure moving forward?
I do. I think that there's some, on infrastructure, we need to go through and identify the oldest and the problem areas. And we know that in Old Town, that's probably the old stuff, and it needs to be fixed. I've got 2 houses down there, and in both places, I've had to repair the sewer line. One just before I bought it, and one that I had when I in there. When we got in there, we found that the old clay pipe run from the house out to the road, and where it hooked on to the city, it was just shoved in there and a little bit of stuff put around it, and it's good. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things Heber City needs to do, bless his heart, we lost a good man here just recently, a good friend of mine, Rex Pedersen, that had more knowledge about the sewer in this community and up in Deercrest, because he was there and he knew it and he made a lot of notes. There's another individual in this community that's here in the summertime and gone in the wintertime, Robert McKnight, that put many, many years. Another one's Lance Higgs. We need to bring them people in, sit down with them, and say, hey, help us out in Old Town and these other places. Help us understand where everything is. There's going to be a day when they're not going to be here with us, just like my good friend Rex Pedersen. Let's identify those problems and let's put them on the forefront. Let's fix them first. Once we get them fixed, then we can expand out. How do we pay for that? We start setting on top of our budget. Number one, we quit annexing, so we don't have more to take care of and more money that needs to go out to fix things. Because even these new developers leave us with problems that we have to go back and fix. Let's stop that. Let's stay in. Let's fix our problems that we have. People think, well, the city's in the black. It's not really in the black. I used to hear this when I worked for the police department. City's in the black. It's not in the red, and everybody else is in the red. When we had the crash in 2002 or 5, yeah. Even in 2005, we started to crash, and go to budget hearings and stuff, and you'd hear, well, the city's in the black. And I used to think, how is the city in the black? Let's go down and look at our public works building. Remember, it was down there, it's got houses on it now. It's all run down, metal building, and all that.
Right.
We spent more money trying to upkeep that. Our police department was in the central school.
Right.
How are we in the black? We're in the red. All that needs to be replaced. And now we're doing it. And that's another thing that I'm sure, Tracy, we're going to talk about today is how they're going to pay for the expansion of this new public works building.
Actually, we're not going to talk about that one. After the primary, we'll have more discussions about some of that. But it's a big, big story.
Well, the way it's going, in my opinion, right now is wrong. I will tell you that right now.
The Heber Light and Power, 75% is owned by Heber City. Mm-hmm. We've had our issues in the past. How do you feel Heber Light and Power is doing? And do you have any ideas for, Heber Light and Power in the future?
Heber Light and Power has went through, I think, the last 5 years has been a real rocky road. I think that there was some people that got involved with that. I still think that there's some people in the city that make decisions that think there's not a problem down there. I think they fixed a lot of problems. I think that there's some new faces down there that's trying to change it. I think they've come a long ways. But honesty, professionalism, and keeping a tight thumb on them right now is what we need to do. And that's Heber City's responsibility, where they own 75%. Mm-hmm. It's our responsibility. Mm-hmm. And when a problem happens, Heber City is one they need to look at and say, how come you're allowing this to happen? And if I was on that board, honesty. And again, if we make a mistake, we say we made a mistake, and if you would, give the money back and say, let's move forward.
Right.
We made a mistake, let's move forward.
So if you were a council person, do you have an issue or something you would like to see happen that you'll work on for the city? Is there any pet project that you would like to make happen, or any ideas of something that you would like to do as a council person?
Yeah, and I've talked to a few people about this and communication. We're not communicating, and people say, yes, we're communicating. They're not communicating. I went to one city council meeting the other night. One of the county councilmen are sitting in the back, and he got up and was able to speak. He was a little upset about the way things were handling. Why shouldn't that happen every single meeting? Here's my thoughts, and this is the first thing, one of the first meetings, one of the things that I had proposed. And if I have to go do it myself, I'll go do it. I have the time to do it, and I want to do it. I think there should be a city councilman in every county council meeting, and I think there should be a county councilman in every city council meeting. That way, there's none of this, well, we didn't know. Well, if you don't know, it's your own fault because you got a representative in there. And as a city councilman, if it's something, in my opinion, that might affect the county, I would look right up during that meeting and I'd say, County Councilman, what's your thoughts? Bring him forward, get his thoughts on it. What you'll see start happening once you start to do that, you'll start a relationship that will start to build. There will not be none of this secretive stuff or anything like that. Well, or finger pointing. There's no room for that. Let's be friends. The other thing that I really want to, I'm frustrated. This is a frustration that I have, and Heber City reaps the benefits of everything that happens in this community, in the county. Whether it's down to the Pony Palace, and I've always called it the Pony Palace. That's not offensive I like the Pony Palace. Our new rodeo grounds, mm-hmm. The new ballparks that we got down there, all of them things are in the Heber City limits. Every time there's an event down there, we get sales tax money off that. Every time the county has that type of situation, a big baseball weekend, softball, tournaments. It brings so much business into here, and who reaps the benefit out of that? The city, out of tax money. And it's my understanding, and I'm still researching this, it's my understanding that Heber City gives the county $10,000 a year for a scholarship for high school rodeo finals. I've talked to the county manager about this. I said, is that true? And he said, well, you know, there might be other things, but yeah, that's pretty well true. My answer to that is, that's wrong. We should be helping the county take care of those buildings, manage them, giving something back to the county because they bring that much money in. I'd like to see, and it's one of the things that I would ask for, is for our city manager and our county manager to be one of them people that goes to a meeting. So this month, guess who's doing it? I'm going as a city to the county, and one of the other ones, the county ones, are coming to ours. But I want there to be a time when Mark Anderson has to go sit in a county meeting, and that our county manager has to go sit in a city meeting, because I think it's going to open their eyes to what they see.
Well, let me ask you to look at the voters and talk to them and tell them why you think they should vote for you, and also any way that they can contact you, whether it be a website or phone number, whatever you have.
Sure. Here's why you need to vote for me, in my opinion, and I'm going to tell you why. If you like the way things are happening today and the way this community is growing, please don't vote for me, because that's not what I believe in, and I don't believe that this community wants that. The reason that I think you need me to be there, and I would ask you to vote for me, is we need to identify what our city stands for, who we are, what we believe in, and move forward. Let's slow down our growth rate. Can we stop it? No. But we can sure control it a lot better than what we do. Let's start working together as a team so that the costs will not grow as rapidly as they are. And if you want to get in touch with me, let me give you my phone number, because I'd rather talk to you than email you or text you, because I believe that I just don't like that kind of stuff. And I'll give you my address of where I live, and I welcome you to come sit down at my house. But my phone number is 801-420-1298, and my address is 261 West, 500 North. People say, well, why would you do that? Because I welcome this community. I've taken care of it for many years, and I want it to be what it was set out to be, a great community to raise our children in, where it takes the whole neighborhood to raise our kids. And that's why I want your vote. It's because that's how I feel about this community.
Perry, thanks a bunch. Stay tuned. We'll have more candidates here shortly. Thanks a lot. Bye.